about 8-month-old baby, GST. It born in July 2017, and within 8 months you find lots and lots of things happening. Let's see how Sir feels so. Thank you.
Thank you. I request the students to maintain silence. I think this session is done for you and all the people who have come here sparing their valuable time. It's a great pleasure to address in Loyola. In fact, the dynamic students and you're fortunate set of people to study in Loyola College, one of the best college in the country. And it's clearly shown by the reports, whatever the magazine comes out with, various reputed magazine comes out with. And the leadership of Loyola College is definitely proactive in organizing this session. And thanks to the principal of the Sushma ma'am and Mr. Ramkumar, who is my great friend, and Marcus, Professor Marcus, Mr. Dr. Major S. Elangovan, Professor Joy Samuel Danraj, and Mr. Ramesh Kannan, who has come out with this beautiful and wonderful publication. And this is my 1000th session on GST for the past 3 years. And I can tell you, none of the forums have published a detailed report like this. It's a wonderful publication on each sector. And I will hand over this copy to the Ministry of Finance, to the Honorable Finance Minister directly. It will go to them. And if you look at the GST as such, the talk of the GST started happening in when the open policy in 1991 was planned by then Congress government. Why? Because when foreign direct investment started coming into India, they wanted the tax laws to be simplified. As simple as that. If you ask me whether tax is a burden, definitely it is a burden. Why? Because there is a set of people who pay taxes. There is a set of people who are supposed to pay taxes who don't pay taxes. There is supposed to be people who cannot pay taxes. This is the situation of the country. Now, there is a complicated law in the country, but the tax collection is very low. Income tax law is so complicated that even if you write 10 attempts of CA final, you will not understand. And even if you practice for 100 years also, you will not understand the income tax law. That's what Albert Einstein said. The most complicated thing which he never understood is tax law. And he forgot to say it is Indian income tax law. And if you look at the taxation system in India, it is very old, as it was in Arthashastra. In the Chandragupta Maurya's period, we had our Chanakya, who has come out with the Arthashastra, where the taxation principles are clearly given. It was part of the Indian culture. He has clearly said, Chanakya has clearly said in Arthashastra that all the hindrance to the economic activity has to be removed. What is the biggest hindrance of economic activity? It is a tax law. And now Indian government was thoughtful about it from 1991, because before that also tax law was very complicated. When India was supposed to compete in the global village, they thought we should become simplified in the tax law. Even before that, our domestic entrepreneurs were there who were suffering. Then the Indian government never thought about it until the foreign investors started coming in. Because foreign investors said, I am ready to invest in India, but your tax law is so complicated, why should I come to India? I will go to Malaysia, I will go to Singapore. That is when the Indian government started thinking about it. And the second phase, when Honorable Prime Minister Sri Atal Bihari Vajpayee came to power, is very clear that he wanted to bring the GST in 1999 and 2000. That is when they decided that they will bring the GST. It took almost 20 years in the country to bring the GST. Was it so complicated in GST when the Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi says it is good and simple tax? When the opposition party would, the Rajiv Gandhi, actually doesn't know GST for information, who went on to say Gabbar Singh tax. And actually it is good and simple tax, but he went on to say it is Gabbar Singh tax because I'm sure as a chartered accountant and as a policy maker, I'm not able to understand GST in full. How can a politician understand? Any politician for that matter. So he went on to say it's a Gabbar Singh tax. Whatever it is, GST is still a simplified tax only. Who complicated? It is a policy makers who complicated it. As simple as that. So now, let me come back and tell you what is GST all about. GST is simply to put across, whatever you consume, you pay tax. And the tax is on the value chain. It is a simplified tax, the tax is on the value chain. You procure a raw material, you pay tax on that, and you take input tax credit on that, and on that manufacturer will pay tax. When he pays output tax, he has already incurred the input tax. So value addition has happened. On the whole of the value addition, including the cost of the raw material, is paying the tax. So input tax is already suffered. What the government says, don't suffer twice. Let's move on from the cascading effect. Whatever the input tax you paid, take credit, only pay the balance portion to the government, because we have already collected the tax in advance. This falls on the value chain from manufacturer to wholesaler, 3 to the retailer, and who said ultimately it goes? It goes to the consumer. Ultimately, who bears the GST? It is the consumer. But why industry people are so worried in India? That is a question you have to study. Ultimately, you are going to pay tax. Who is going to pay tax? It is the consumer who is going to pay tax. Who has to be worried? Consumer has to be worried. Why industry people are worried? I will tell you the story. I will tell you the story. Sale alone will not come down. Never. I will tell you the story. Indian economy. You have to understand the economics. You are reading about Alfred Marshall, Adam Smith, which you never use in life. You read it in +2, then BCom, BBA, whatever, CA, CWA, CS, law, everywhere. This economics, what you read is not useful at all. I will tell you the economics of India. What is the proportion of India? You will understand that. Simply to put across. India is not driven by MNC company and Indian companies. India is driven by MSME. The total employment opportunity created by MSME is 93.5%. Out of the 100% tax return filed, 96% of the tax return in the corporate tax environment, it is filed by MSME. And the real growth driver of India is MSME. Now, why am I explaining this? Because Indian economy is a unique economy which cannot be compared with Malaysia, Singapore, or any other country. It is Mr. Nair clearly said, Suresh Nair clearly said, India has 29 states and 7 union territories, and it is a complex country. You cannot apply Malaysian GST law in India, neither Australian GST law in India, because India is functioning in the cooperative federalism. And state government has their own agenda to increase the revenue. Central government has their own agenda to increase the revenue. There is a different government in central government. There is a different government in the state government. So looking at all this complexity, GST should have been brought from India-centric point of view. There was no original thought put in the GST. Please understand. There is no original thought put in the GST. Whatever the GDP numbers you see in India, I can put across in a simple way. That number is wrong. Whatever the GDP number, what you are reading in economics is wrong. Whatever the number that is reported in IMF is wrong. Whatever the Indian government is reporting is wrong. Your GDP is much more higher than that because of informal economy, the parallel economy. That has to be brought in inside the Indian economy, because there's an unaccounted portion which never got accounted in the past 60 years. People who spoke against the GST are the people who are actually making black money. That is the reason industry went on to criticize about the GST. There are honest taxpayers in every industry. I'm not talking about them. It is actually the consumers who should have actually spoken against the GST. Consumers never understood GST, please understand. But except the honest taxpayer, the majority of the people in the industry are not honest taxpayers. How can I validate this? Your research maybe in the next time should carry this research. In India, only 3% of the population paid taxes. What is the total population of India? It is 130 crore. 3% of the population only paid taxes, but Audis, BMW and bungalows are more than the taxpayer. How is it possible? This is a research point what Laila should take up next time and should come out with a research paper to make the students to understand how to increase the tax base. So there is a segment of people who are having bungalows and Audis and BMW, but the tax pay is only 3%. Why should I pay tax? For the socio-economic development. Whenever you get a question, why should I pay the GST? It is for developing your nation. Because ultimately, if the core citizens are not developed, if the people are going to be in the poverty line, they will become moist and Naxals and trouble you. That is the reason we have the responsibility to increase the tax base in India. This is a story which I want to tell you before I talk about the technicalities of GST. Now coming back, I will take up one by one industry with a due credit to the honest taxpayer. I will tell you why they are opposed. First industry I want to take up is hotel industry. Now, hotel industry went on to go for a strike. One of the prominent television channel called me to debate. I mean, Ramkumar is my, always sees my debate and he gets back to me the feedback. Same program also, he also saw that. Then the anchor asked me, sir, why hotel industry is opposing? I said hotel industry is always been incentivized through cash. Whenever you went to the hotel, nobody paid in cash. Majority of them used to pay in, nobody paid in card. Everybody used to pay in cash. When cash comes into hand, we have option whether to report to the income tax, not report to the income tax. Now what happens under the GST? Government went on to say that for the each bill what you raise, you have to file GSTR1, GSTR2, GSTR3. GSTR1 will contain all the invoices. GSTR2 is nothing but wherever you procure inputs, that person will be a registered person. If he is not registered person, as the original law, I am talking about the original law which came on July 1. If it is not registered, then you will actually pay on a reverse charge mechanism, and then only you will be eligible to the input tax credit which you paid to the vendor or supplier. Only when both matches, GSTR1 minus GSTR2 is the tax you are supposed to pay. This was a plan of the government. If this was properly implemented, then entire industry would have got formalized. This was the intention on June 30th. That is the reason the industry went for strike. It is not because the consumers were suffering. I am making this point with a full conviction, because I don't want to give a notional thing here. I don't want to speak diplomatically against any industry or favoring any industry. I know the ground reality. You can go and check as a research in the grassroots level. I can tell you, because of GST, traders have gained. They have not lost. I'll tell you. B2B transaction, business to business, people at least complain. Business to commerce, that is business to consumer. In respect to business to consumer, consumer paid the taxes plus the price of the product, but the person who raised the bill tore the bill. Consumer also tore the bill. Ultimately, he pocketed not only GST, but also the price of the product and never paid to the government also. Hope you got the point. In the name of the GST, traders collected the money. They never reported. There are people who report honestly. I am not talking about them. I am talking about the majority, right, who are supposed to give revenue to the government. When people went and asked, why is the price of the product increased? They said, because of GST. Because of the government of India. They forgot the fact GST is not the role of the central government. GST is decided by the GST Council, where 2/3 voting power is for the state government, 1/3 voting power is for the central government. Both of them sit together through GST Council. They will decide the rate of tax and the applicability of tax. It's a cooperative federalism. That is the reason GST Council is the first modern technology available for bringing reforms in the country. And the GST laid that foundation. But what happened? Now, coming back to the hotel industry, on July 1, what did they do? Everybody here, GST was implemented in the parliament. Politicians went away implementing it. And here, conveniently in the morning, all the hotel industry raised the prices in spite of taking input tax credit. Please understand. They took input tax credit on oil. They took input tax credit on whatever they have incurred as a tax. But still, they increased the price, telling to the people that because of GST, price has increased. Because of GST, price can never increase. It actually should have got reduced, especially in the hotel industry. Because if you buy cooker, the cooker, whatever the tax you pay, the cooker cost, the cooker price plus the tax is an input tax credit for you. But they never passed on this benefit of input tax credit to the ultimate consumer. One evidence I'll tell you. Hindustan Unilever went on to declare the revised MRP prices in the month of November. My question is, why did they not declare the revised MRP on July 1 in the newspaper? Do you think that they did not have time to do the impact analysis? They did the impact analysis, but they're reluctant to file revise the MRP price. I know which audit firm did the impact analysis also. I know which consultant. They did the impact analysis 1 year before the GST was implemented with all the rates of tax revising it. This is a point of research you should see. So now what is the solution? Government was not clear in implementing the GST, the pathway. Then I went and did a research in Malaysia. It is a pioneer in implementing GST, and that model we have adopted. I went and spoke to the Director General itself who implemented GST in Malaysia. Fortunately, he is a Tamilian. You should invite him to Loyola College. We will look at how to invite him. His name is Dr. Subramaniam Tulasi. Subro. I went to his office and I asked him, sir, this is the way India has implemented. Tell me your views. Mr. Sathya Kumar, the ministry officials came to